Hello everyone, this is FIDE Master Viktor Neustroev. So today we're gonna talk about Magnus Carlsen's games. We will be trying to reveal his secret. Well, to be honest, of course, Magnus has not only one secret. Well, he's really good at several chess aspects, but our task will be to realize what makes him the best chess player in the world and what we can learn from his games to implement in our games. However, before we start, let's just discuss. So let's check how many participants do we have for today. I also ask you to let me know what your current ELO is. It can be either FIDE rating or chess.com ELO or USCF. So please let me know. And also, which country are you from? So as for me, well, probably you know me, right? So I'm a FIDE master. Now I'm living in Buenos Aires. It's almost noon in Buenos Aires and 11 a.m. in New York. Well, today I have a lot of chess activities. I've already conducted 3 classes. What else? Then we have this webinar. Then I'm going to prepare a little bit, and today I'm going to play the game in National League. So I'm playing for San Isidro team, and today I'm going to play against, most likely I'm going to play against Grandmaster Federica Perez Ponsa, who is one of the top players of Argentina. Well, I'm preparing a bit, but there is no guarantee that I'm going to play exactly against him, because sometimes there are some substitutions, and he can be substituted if he, for example, is involved into other chess activities this week. But actually, he played a lot of games, and I mean, he played all 4 games that we played. I mean, there were 3 rounds. I missed the first 2. I started only from round 3, and well, I'm going to play all the rest. And this guy played all 3 games, and most likely he gonna play today. Well, anyway, I have some preparation, and it would be a good experience for me to play against quite a strong grandmaster. Well, I'm not always losing to grandmasters, so I had a draw. I had 1 win. That's why it's okay. And I had another draw. I have actually several draws playing in rapid, but we're gonna play with the standard time control. Okay, so we're waiting for more people to join us. Please let me know if the sound and video quality is good. I think it should be fine. Maybe there can be maybe 15 seconds delay. Oh, this time we started a bit earlier. That's why let's wait for other people. Okay, so here we have Richard, who lives in the United Kingdom, and his current rating is 1379, which is which is good. Well, I'm not sure if ECF rating is similar to FIDE, but I think so. Okay, so 2 more minutes. We'll wait for 2 more minutes, and then we will start. Well, for today I prepared actually 4 different games from the World Cup, but I don't think we have enough time to analyze all of them. And we are not going to analyze the full game. We are going to quickly go through some not important moments of the game and focus on something which I consider is really important for your learning process. Okay, so if you have any questions which are related to our webinar's topic or maybe some other questions, you can always ask. I'll try to answer. Every time I see your question, I'll try to answer it. And well, is it time to start? Let's wait for 1 more minute and start. So people are joining. Did everyone receive the link to this event? Okay, I hope so. So once again, let's start and let me repeat what we are going to do today. So today our webinar is devoted to Magnus Carlsen's play. We are going to analyze some of his games played at the World Cup 2023. He became a winner of the World Cup, and that is his last trophy. I mean, he has a lot of trophies from other tournaments. He was a world champion for many years, and he is still the strongest chess player in the world at the moment. I'm sure he would defeat either Jan Nepomniachtchi or Ding Liren. I don't think that they are competitive enough for him. But he refused playing a match against them, so he decided to just keep playing chess and try to reach 2900. Well, okay, so you know, Magnus Carlsen is good at several chess aspects. Well, if we say that he's good at everything in chess, that would be a mistake. Well, for example, his opening preparation isn't so good, but he can compensate it with his other chess aspects. And if you look at his games, it's very often when Magnus Carlsen doesn't have any opening advantage. However, somehow he manages to beat his opponent anyway. Why? Well, that was a good question, and I tried to answer it. It's something about the ability of Magnus Carlsen to find unpleasant moves during the game and force their opponents to make mistakes. He has a special feeling of where the pieces should be located, and once he comes up with the plan, it's easy for him to make the moves. And he makes the moves that are not well, maybe not the strongest, but sometimes he plays the strongest. But if, for example, in the position there are several approximately equal candidate moves, he chooses the one which is unpleasant for his opponent. Okay, let's start. So let's start, and we start with the rapid game. That was the last stage, the final of the World Cup, and Magnus Carlsen was played against Indian prodigy Prague. This is the game that you probably saw on my Instagram. No, not the game, but the final combination. So that's why I decided to focus on it today. So if you remember, they made 2 draws, and the match ended in a draw. That's why they had a tiebreak consisting of 3 games. There was a draw, with the win that we are going to analyze, and the last was also a draw, so Magnus defeated Prague in the tiebreak. So it was Italian game. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6. Well, some people play knight g5, but usually in serious games it's better to play just d3 to play slow Italian game. Bishop c5, a4, d6. Well, recently I had a similar position with white, and I castled, but my opponent played h6, g5, which was quite risky. However, I managed to outplay him because of better pieces coordination. But in this case, well, my opponent played a6, I continued with c3, rook e1, he moved the bishop to a7 and only then continued with h6, g5. This is where Magnus plays a5. It's conceptually another move. It's the move with a different plan. So here c3 b4 no longer makes sense, but c3 b4 is a very common plan for slow Italian game. Well, if you know, it's called so Italian game is called gioco piano, and slow Italian games is called gioco pianissimo. Well, yeah, so I will agree with Richard saying that Carlsen's strength is great and gameplay. That's true. He is able to outplay his opponent in approximately equal endgame. And this is what we'll see. So bishop e3. Well, this exchange, if it ruins the pawn structure, is favorable for black, because the white's pawn structure is ruined. Same thing with bishop e6 move. It favors white if that happens. But bishop e3 eliminates this active bishop and f2 is no longer in danger. Moreover, it's quite common when queen b8, queen a7 is played in order to attack f2. So here with bishop e3, Parag stops Magnus Carlsen's plan. Castle, knight bd2, and what now? Well, are there any participants who play Italian game with black pieces? If yes, then which move, which plan do you think black should follow here? Who can tell me? Bishop g4 is unlikely to work. The bishop only becomes the object of the attack. The queen goes there and then to the king side, to these squares, g3 and h4. Bishop e6 to make it symmetrical. Well, why not? But there is no guarantee they take. Instead, they play something else and wait until you take, and then they take with the knight. There is no queen b8, queen a7 plan anymore. It's now considered to be too slow, and the queen is out of the game, and white may initiate a kingside attack while the queen is on the other flank. And in Italian game, it's quite common when black does this maneuver. So they want to play c6, d5, or sometimes just d5. And the knight is better placed on g6, where it can support the pawn on e5, then nothing can stop c6, d5, and black is likely to get a strong pawn center. Parag plays this move, and if now knight g6, it's knight f5. That's why Magnus keeps the knight here and continues with c6, queen e1 and d5 in this position. Now the question for you, should white take or not? Looks like their pawns are doubled, and if they take, they undouble. So generally speaking, it is favorable, right? Well, not exactly. If they take, c takes, then the bishop moves. Well, the f5 square becomes unavailable for the knight, of course. Also, let's say this move, creating the pin, the king goes, and then maybe just e4. And what white achieved? Nothing. The bishop is blocked, so if d4 is played, the bishop is out of the game. But if they just play this move and then black takes on e4, then knight e4, knight takes, knight, pawn takes, look at these pieces. So having double pawns is not always bad. You should compare the disadvantage of having these pawns, making them weaknesses because they can be easily attacked and cannot protect each other, with the benefits that you get, such as the control over the f5, the d file open, and these two pawns attack a lot of squares into the center, preventing enemy pieces from maneuvering through the center. So that's why, of course, neither Prague nor Magnus capture on d5 or on e4. Queen d6 was played instead. Queen goes there, knight h5, queen g5, and now this knight is under attack, so it could make sense to retreat back. But Magnus plays his first mistakes. He plays g6. Provoking, well, defending here and maybe provoking this move. This is the move that was played. And instead, it was better for white to continue with just this move, well, attacking the pawn on e5, provoking f6, then moving the queen there, and then trying to play knight g5 at a certain moment of the game. For example, knight g7, knight g5, and after f takes, this is where white has a full compensation. They are about to take the knight, to win the knight at the very next move, after a check. Of course, nobody asks to capture. It can be just knight h5 played, after which the h7 is no longer hanging, and then the knight has to retreat. But still, the white's attack seems to be dangerous. Instead, it was knight f5. So we cannot tolerate the knight, so take. The pawns are undoubled. After which, f6 is a threat. That's why king g7. King g7. King h1. King h1. And what do you think black should do in this position? So now Magnus, right now Magnus plays like an ordinary grandmaster, nothing specific, just approximately equal position, and he is trying to avoid the threats that white create. So can you guess the move for black here? So why king h1? They are preparing for g4 and they want to get rid of all this. Well, maybe this move is not important actually. But they are preparing for g4, maybe h4, so they want to move the rook to the g file. So here Richard suggests f6. Well, f6 makes sense, but f6 at the same time leaves the knight with no squares to escape. You see, after king h1, the main problem is that black is under the attack, and in order to get rid, to fix this problem, they have to move the queen out of the board. That's why this move. Because now white is forced to take. If white doesn't take, but somehow avoids this exchange by playing this move, which is the only other move, to avoid an exchange of the queens, then knight takes f5, and e4 doesn't help because of this fork. Well, black doesn't win anything here. Then it's rook f6, knight takes g4, rook d6, and rook f d8. So then knight goes to e3. So it's not extra exchange, but this is how the queens are exchanged anyway, and the position is even more favorable. Queen f6, knight f6, the pawn is hanging, so take, h takes, and now e4. This is where Magnus takes, making this pawn a weakness and opening the d file. So this move, rook goes to d8, rook f2 defending it, rook d4 pressuring the weakness, rook a f1. What can you say about such move like knight e4? Is it a possible idea, or is it a losing move? f7 is also vulnerable. And while you are thinking, just let me do one thing and improve and get rid of the background noise here. Okay, it's fixed. I think now audio quality is perfect. So knight e4 is a mistake because it blunders on f7. Well, I don't think it blunders on f7. Yeah, but it simplifies the position and makes it equal. If black wants to win, and they have some winning chances, the position is approximately equal, but this rook is more active, e4 is more a weakness comparing to this f7 pawn. But that would lead to a mass exchange. For example, what? So knight takes, rook f7 check, rook takes f7, rook takes rook, king goes to h6. And now the e7 knight is not hanging because of rook e1. So king g1 has to be played instead, and then knight f5, and rook b7, of course, the number of pawns is equal, but it still should be a draw. Maybe you may say here, instead of taking, what if they take immediately? Well, it doesn't really change much. You can capture, they capture with the rook, you move the king, they take on e7 this time, and in this position, let's decide what is better. But this time I think it's better to take with the knight. To take with the knight, to threaten to take there, and then a discovered attack. Black has some more winning chances. Okay, so this move wasn't played because of the exchange and rook f7, which simplifies the position a lot. And e takes g8 is the only other move to protect on f6. c3, rook goes back. Rook e2, rook e7. Well, what's the point of this move? This is where Magnus demonstrates that he is really good in planning. So why does he play rook e7? The rook is active on the d file, right? And many of you would continue maybe with this move, trying to pressure the knight, maybe to enter the enemy camp. But these pieces are not participating in the game, and you can provoke your opponent for a mistake only in case if in such a position with fewer pieces on the board, only if all of your pieces do something. This knight on g8 is not doing much. That's why let's improve it. And you can improve it if you vacate the f6 square. So or if you push the f pawn forward. Rook e7 is played in order to activate the knight. So yes, the rook now goes to a more passive position, but it activates the knight. Bishop c2, knight d7, knight c4, attacking it. Rook e8. Why rook e8? Why not b6, for example? Well, rook e8 allows us to play b5 in future, and maybe there will be a passed pawn. That's why this move makes more sense. While this move forces the knight to stay and defend these two pawns. And here we can play b5 and get rid of the knight. g4, f6. Rook g2, knight goes to h6. Of course, it provokes g5, and g5 is a clever idea. It ruins the pawn structure, isolates these two pawns. But then this knight gets to a better place, defending everything, and it's gaining a tempo. Rook goes to g2. Now what? It's time for us to activate pieces that are not active. This rook is active, this is not. So let's exchange them. Take, knight takes, and white continued with b4, a takes b4. Now this rook becomes more active, and we don't really need to focus on the weakness on a5. What now? These pieces are good, the king is not. Let's activate it. a5. So a5 consists of the idea of maybe playing a6, weakening c6. Also, this move can be played. I'm not sure if it's doing a lot, but if the rook can join attack from d7, well, right now it cannot, of course, but if that can be a threat for future positions. So there is a good question: how to compare the position of pieces? Well, first, let's decide. Okay, so what this rook on e7 is doing? The rook does a defensive function. It does defend the pawn on e5, but the pawn on e5 is already defended with two pieces. And one knight is enough to cover it. This rook is defending here and potentially is about to create a passed pawn. So this rook is relatively okay. This rook is not. While this rook is on the open file, it can enter, it attacks f7, they can be doubled and that can be an issue for us. So that's why this rook being on the open file, attacking something or trying to enter our camp is definitely better than the rook which is restricted. That's why the exchange of the rooks makes sense. This bishop is restricted. Should we exchange it? Well, not right now. Once it becomes active, for example, if it gets to c4, then maybe. But the bishop on c2, it makes sense to exchange the bishop on c2 in case if we can double attack these two weaknesses. So you just, how to compare pieces, you just try to understand what this or that piece is doing. So the rook on the open or semi-open file does more than the rook on the closed file, with just fewer squares to move to. So rook e6, rook d2. Rook f6, the rooks are exchanged, and well, we stopped here after a5. Now what? This rook is no longer doing anything, right? Then rook h8. Another possible option was to play rook d8 and exchange the rooks, but then, well, then the game is very close to a draw. So he plays rook h8, trying to activate the rook. Now it goes to maybe here to attack there. Rook e2 was played, which I don't really like because, well, this is a passive move. The rook here is more important, but this move was played for defensive purposes, to defend on e4. However, instead, white could obtain a counterplay, and I want you to search for this counterplay. So it's still approximately equal position. Both players can play for win. Black hopes to capture the pawn on e4 or at least activate the rook, attacking it because they can do this, they can do that, and pressure the pawn. Well, every time they move this knight, the e5 is vulnerable. So maybe king e6 first. But which counterplay white may initiate? What do you think? Well, king g3 to stop rook h4. Well, I agree, it's possible. Well, however, then king e6 and knight g5, threatening with rook h3. So maybe king g3 and then h4, but then you have to keep an eye on h4. Well, the counterplay I'm talking about is actually bishop d3, rook h4 and rook b2. Knight takes there, gaining a pawn. And then b5, trying to either create a passed pawn or make the b7 pawn a weakness. For example, if knight c5, it's take, and then just bishop moves, and this pawn becomes a passed pawn. Well, which means that you can potentially move it to a6. If here c takes b5, then b7 becomes vulnerable, so the knight goes there. But if the knight goes there, it's simply knight e5, and this rook is no longer hanging because of knight g6. And if knight takes knight, it seems that at least white has a draw in his pocket. And this moment illustrates the difference between two players. Magnus knows how to play unpleasantly, how to pressure his opponent. But Prague was unable to find this counterplay. So, well, of course, in equal position, well, your task is to not make the best moves, but to make such moves that are hard to respond. So such moves that create threats to provoke your opponent to stay under the pressure and at a certain moment to make a mistake. Okay, so there is a question, for example, that no, not here. That the knight is able to block the pawn on a6. Well, yes, that's right. But do you mean you have to keep it? Then rook b6 is coming. And rook b6, a6 is coming. So this is not a good blockade, while these pieces are too far from the place of action, which now switches to the queen side. Okay, so rook a2. Knight goes to fork. King g1. Knight still goes to f4 because this is a better spot. Rook d2 and rook h3. So black achieved something with this rook and knight maneuver. At least it looks dangerous, while white didn't do anything. Now it's still okay. They could hold the position with this move. Bishop d1. Letting the rook to go anywhere they want. So the f3 square is protected. Maybe they also have this idea in mind. So rook h4 maybe, king f1. If rook c3, it's always rook c2. And once the rooks are gone, the position becomes so simple that I think they would end in a draw. But Parag plays for a win. He plays a6, ruining the pawn structure, and then tries to gain this pawn on c6 back. But that was already a critical mistake. They both were low on time. And that's the reason why he just completely missed. Rook c3. Not the best move. Probably when Magnus played it, he realized that this move was definitely not the best. But, well, and white could continue with rook c2 and still simplify. But knight a5, the last mistake. Here, with these two moves, Parag thought that he takes the pawn on c6, maybe then he can somehow attack the pawn on a6, and once he gets it, the b pawn becomes a passed pawn and he gets some chances. Right? No, not exactly, because black also has a counterplay. Black activated their pieces on the king side, and now they play knight g5 move. So who can tell me what black is threatening with in this position? Well, of course it's knight f3 fork. Yeah, knight f3. But is it enough just to move the rook to c2? I mean, what else black is threatening instead of knight f3? Because now knight f3 doesn't make much sense. So this is a checkmate, and that checkmate almost happened in the game. So knight g goes to h3. Then the king goes to h1 or f1, doesn't matter. And after this move, this is a double attack. You are threatening with a mate as well as to capture the bishop. In the game it was knight c6, king f6, and this is where Parag realized that he cannot defend both. Well, you may say, well, why rook c2? Why not just to move the king to avoid the fork? Well, yes, it could be possible, but then knight e4 with a temper, rook d1, and the king is still in a danger. So with two knights and a rook, black is able to initiate a strong attack on the enemy king, and that definitely was more than enough to compensate these weaknesses on a6 and c6. For example, rook f2, and after knight d2 they have to give up the exchange. or after this move it's knight d3 in the game, it's a checkmate. So this is how the game ended. Knight c6, king f6. And from this game, you see that in approximately equal by the first glance position, which happened there, Black managed to outplay his opponent. How was it possible? It was mainly because Magnus was better with planning, and because he was able to create such a play which was unpleasant for his opponent, and that's why Prague was provoked to make a mistake. Well, maybe if Prague was playing for a draw, he would instead defend his king's position, or just centralize his pieces, or would try to exchange the rooks, but he was also playing for a win, because the winner gets a World Cup. This is a very important trophy for every chess player. Okay, so the game was won because of the ability to coordinate pieces and to play unpleasantly. If White was playing for a draw, then playing unpleasantly can be a strategy, but will be not so effective. Okay, fine. So the second game I would like to talk about is the game that Magnus Carlsen played against Levan Pantsulaia. Why I chose this game? Well, I chose this game because this game illustrates of how Magnus can dominate on other strong grandmasters. So let's skip the opening part of the game really quickly. Yeah, Richard is absolutely correct. So Prague was better in the opening. He could continue his kingside attack, but he played knight f5 and Magnus was allowed to exchange the queens. This is where he missed his chance. Then the position became approximately equal and the game could end in a draw. But, well, Magnus is better in such positions. Okay, there is another good question from Perumal Krishna. When and where to calculate? Okay, let me answer this question. Well, sometimes when it comes to a positional play, when the position is closed, for example, you always look for candidate moves and you try to calculate 2-3 moves deeper and then evaluate the position and decide whether it's favorable for you or not. And if not, let's look at other candidate moves and so on. But sometimes you have to calculate longer lines and look for tactics. And this is where you have to calculate more and deeper. But how to realize that it's time to look for tactics? In order to realize it, you should define the type of the position, whether it's positional or tactical, or it's tactical positional or positional tactical. Well, this is what I cover in my last course on Chessable. It's called Power Up Visualization. You can go through it. But the main concept is that you define whether the position is sharp enough, open, for example, with a lot of threats and require immediate reactions from both players. This is where you should start calculating. Usually it's middle games or some end games. Or middle games in open and semi-open positions, especially open Sicilian lines. Okay, and let's continue. So knight f3, g6, d4, well, something like Binoni, e4, e6, h3 is a prophylaxis because this bishop has nowhere to go. Knight e7, knight c3, h6, and d takes e6 finally was played. The bishop takes on e6. Well, here White controls the d5 square, but moving the knight to d5 means to exchange, and that would compensate the backward pawn on d6. This pawn can be directly attacked, and that's why Here, Magnus plays bishop f4. Knight b to c6, and the pawn is sacrificed. So it's actually quite common. But for this pawn sacrifice, they usually have a compensation. Queen a5, queen goes back to d2, knight b4. This is a threat. So a3, but the knight is not hanging. g5. Bishop goes back, and now rook d2. So looks like black achieved something for the pawn, right? So their rook is active. They have some ideas of knight c2. Queen goes to c1, and now the knight is hanging. Knight goes to d3. And with this move, black achieved something. They exchanged the bishop for the knight. They activated their rook. All other pieces are good. The c4 pawn is hanging, and once b3 is played, it's just the c3 knight lost. Moreover, black can capture on c3 and double the pawns. So looks like the black's position is okay. But white castles, and black takes on c4. Now the material is equal. However, since this moment, white starts developing initiative. What would you do in this position? The number of pawns is equal, right? But how can you play in order to improve the coordination of your pieces and at the same time create threats? So this is another key moment. This is another key moment of the game where Magnus demonstrated his chess skills. So, well, there is a discovered attack, so what does it make sense to play? Maybe rook a1, maybe rook d1 to exchange this dangerous rook. What else? Maybe knight d2? Well, knight d2 may lead to rook d2, queen d2, bishop f1, and then black castles. But this is how black loses a power of two bishops. Well, rook d1 seems to be the most natural reaction, right? Right, but not for Magnus Carlsen. Instead, he realizes that the enemy king is on e8, and that means that you can try to take advantage of it. And for this, Magnus sacrifices another pawn. What then? Well, taking with the rook means to lose the exchange, right? Or even more than exchange. Well, taking with the rook, then if you take, they take there. After which you can continue with d6. Well, maybe not d6, maybe just maybe queen f1. Well, you can take on c4 here. Then the rook would have to move, and white can activate their pieces. For example, rook has to move there, then b4, c takes b4, a takes b4, and then a7 pawn is under risk. And if this move, it's just that. So taking with the knight means to hang two pieces simultaneously. That doesn't work. And well, the bishop is hanging, so they definitely have to take with the bishop. Pawn takes, rook takes, and looks like the black's position is relatively safe. One move, and they have a very brilliant position where no weaknesses, well, almost no weaknesses, and some chances to play for a win. But Magnus prepared rook e1. Now they cannot castle. That's why they have to move their piece back to castle on the next move. However, queen c4, they don't have this chance to castle. So, for example, castle, rook takes d7, queen takes d7, queen takes d5, and black is down a piece. Well, taking on b2 is too risky. Then, for example, it can be rook a2, rook e2, for example. What else? Well, rook b1, rook b7. I think this is enough to understand that it's completely winning for white. That's why Levan Pansulayo realizes that if he wants to survive here, he needs to get rid of this pin. Well, right now, white is not threatening, neither with this move nor with that move. But they want to do something like maybe bishop e5. Exchanging the bishops, taking with the knight, then applying some discovered attack. Or maybe they first start with queen e2, and then something like that, maybe then before. So anyway, it is a long-term pressure which black has to stay for. However, as a reward for this long-term pressure, they have extra pawn. And now, if they want to keep extra pawn and get rid of the problems, they have to move the king. But this move has another disadvantage. Now the rook is not participating in the game. If the rook was there, I would say it's fine and black is playing for a win. But not in this case. Okay, what do you think? How white should continue the game? So probably it's h4 and rook h6. This is what black gonna do. Or maybe they can continue with this move. Then bishop f6 and king g7, activating the rook. Yeah, so bishop f6 and king g7 is definitely possible. Why not bishop f6 in this position? Well, then maybe bishop e5. So let's say bishop e5, bishop takes, knight takes, then knight goes there. So for example, castle, knight goes there, and I'm threatening with rook e7, queen takes d5. So you have no king g7 move. And if you play something like that, which saves the knight and at the same time defends on h6, then it's just queen d5. So that's why not bishop f6. King f6 and then bishop f6. And then king g7. But how would you continue your initiative here? What do you think? So who can tell me? I'm looking at your comments. Rook takes d7. Well, rook takes d7, king takes d7. Well, this sacrifice doesn't work at the moment. So you have to keep increasing pressure. And it's knight e5. There is a pin, so the rook cannot move. And on the next move, you're gonna do this. And if the bishop takes, then you play bishop e5 and bishop f6, and they are in trouble. So with knight e5, you increase the pressure, creating a pin. Knight c6, rook a d1, taking advantage of the pin, but they play knight d4, luckily. Well, in that position, okay, instead of knight e5, if rook e2, I think they would solve this problem with knight g6 move. So, for example, this move, you double, they play this move, and then they play this move. Well, maybe here you can take on e7. Yes, you can. Yes. I don't think so, because after rook d1, you have to block with this rook, after which they may take and continue with queen d1. So bishop e5, f6, bishop c3, and then this. And it's likely to be a draw. The rook activity is important. Well, actually, maybe after this move, after rook e2, I have to do something else. Well, what about this move? And then just queen d5. So I simplified and I'm about to play this move. So rook e2 doesn't look good. Let's continue with knight e5 instead. And the line that happened in the game. Knight d4, king h1, because at some moment knight f3 can be played, because this rook becomes vulnerable. Not always, but this is a good prophylaxis. And of course, this plan could make sense. However, Pansulaya realized it a little bit later. First, he continued with b5 move. b5, now the queen goes to d3. It's still a pin. h5. Now what? So white is still a pawn down and black is about to solve their issue with the rook. After rook h6, it seems that their position is good, so king can move to g8, no problems at all. Then even bishop for a knight exchange can happen. What do you think white should do? So can white improve their pieces to add more pressure? Knight c6. Well, yeah, knight c6, but the idea of this move is not to exchange the knights, of course. The idea is to improve the position of this knight by relocating it to f5. Queen b6, knight e7, rook goes back, knight f5, and it's still a pin. Also, bishop e5 is coming either immediately or after knight takes bishop. So, for example, here bishop f6 was better, but then bishop e5. However, rook g8. And this is where black could try to survive. White is still pressuring and white is still better. They can just continue with this move, trying to attack, trying to relocate the knight. So, for example, this, then take there, queen takes, knight goes to e4, attacking the queen and the pawn on c5. So it still will be a problem for black. But because they were under the pressure for a very long period of time, they made a serious mistake already. Well, this is a serious mistake. Queen g6. So what's wrong with this move and how we take advantage of it? What do you think? With this move, black lost the coordination of their pieces. The queen here was important. It was also defending the rook on the back rank. And now the back rank is only defended with this rook. And that might give you a hint that you have some major pieces coordination that is decisive for this position. However, don't forget that your knight on f5 is hanging always. So what comes to your mind here? Bishop d6 is quite interesting. Bishop d6, and if they take with the rook, what did you prepare? Knight takes, but then queen takes. And how do you take advantage of the back rank weakness? Or maybe you had something else in mind. So bishop d6 is unlikely to work. Okay, so here John suggests the correct move. It's bishop c7. Why? Why bishop c7? Well, first of all, it's easy to realize that once the rook goes somewhere here or there, let's say here, it's bishop d6 and the fork. That's why the rook has to keep control of the d6 square. So rook d7, but that means that the back rank is already weakened. How would you continue here? What do you think? So the rook moved. The rook no longer defends the back rank. Let's take advantage of it. There are several ways of doing it, but Magnus chose the most brilliant one. Okay, so here John suggests queen e4, and actually, John, I agree with you, queen e4 is a winning move. So queen e4 threatens a mate, as well as to capture the rook. For example, this, check, king h7, take, knight takes f5. Extra exchange. You can also take these pawns. It's a winning position. Can you play better instead? So imagine queen e4 is played with a tempo. Then it provides you with more chances, with more mating opportunities. And that's the reason why Magnus Carlsen here played a brilliant move rook e8. So he sacrifices the rook in order to activate his queen with a tempo. What now? Well, blocking with the queen doesn't make any sense. It's a checkmate. Blocking with the knight is probably better, but now the rook is opened. That's why after queen e8, it's still a mate. Rook goes there, then you take this rook. The king has no moves. This is a checkmate. If the knight blocks, you can still take there and deliver this checkmate with rook, knight, and the bishop. So this is what happened in the game. Well, another important aspect that makes Magnus Carlsen better than most of his opponent is the ability to keep the initiative and force his opponent to find the only move. And if the only move is not found and some small mistake, well, queen g6 is a logical move, right? Some small mistake is played, the position becomes automatically winning for Magnus. This is where he is good at. So we are about to finish, but before we finish, I would like to share with you something. So recently, I created a course devoted to Magnus Carlsen's play. It's called Play Chess Like Magnus Carlsen. And well, maybe you already heard about this course. It was published maybe 1 month before. And I took the games which Magnus Carlsen took really seriously. These are the games that he played at World Championship matches. These games illustrate why Magnus is the best player. And I analyzed 17 of his games, and each game is devoted to a certain aspect of Magnus Carlsen played. For example, actually 16 games. There is introduction and 16 games. So, for example, how to outplay in equal positions, equal in games. This is where you can learn a lot. How to attack pawn weaknesses. How to attack your opponent if you are already under the attack. How to initiate favorable exchanges and improve your pieces coordination. This is what all we need to learn, especially me. And even when I was doing this course, when I was analyzing his games and recording these videos, I also learned a lot, and maybe that helps me now in my games in National League here in Argentina. Well, what I like about his end games is how to play the end game. So, for example, this is the game between Carlsen and Karakin shows that Carlsen can outplay anyone in the end game. How to develop initiative, how to convert your space advantage. So all these topics are covered. So today we only focus on two things: how to make unpleasant moves and how to keep initiative. So here in this course you can get a lot of practical tips that you can implement in your games and learn them from the games of the best chess player in the world. And if you use this link, you can save 50%, so it's currently $49.50. Let me copy this link for you. And there also will be another webinar, this time in Zoom, for the students of this course. So if you are a student of the chess world, of this course, either on the chess world or on my website, message me, or I will definitely message you because I track all my students, and you will be able to participate in a Zoom meeting where we are going to discuss Magnus play in more details. You will be also available. You can also ask any questions or ask for any hints, especially from your games if they are at least somehow relative to our topic, Magnus Carlsen's play. So now you can get this course for $49.50. You click here and apply a coupon code Magnus, 50 Magnus. So it's 50% off. And then you use your, you can pay by card or PayPal. Okay, so I think we are done for today. If you have any questions, you're welcome. Let's just quickly repeat everything. So let's just quickly go to the first game and then to the second game and quickly repeat. But I have two more games to analyze, and this is what we can probably do at our Zoom meeting next time. So first of all, the end games. The end games are really great. So this is where I agree with Richard, who says that Magnus is really good in the end games. Yes, he can outplay his opponent in the end games, and this is mainly because of his ability to coordinate pieces properly. He has a feeling of where these pieces should be. For example, what's the purpose of playing rook e7 here? Well, while the rook is active. This move is required to activate these two knights, which can do much more rather than the rook on the d file. Also, Magnus does a lot of unpleasant moves to provoke his opponent to make mistakes. For example, his kingside attack. Well, with the fewer pieces, it's almost impossible to succeed with the kingside attack, but he was able to do it. And finally, well, white was playing for a win, and finally white moved two pieces to the edge and completely missed that their king is not safe. Well, by the first glance, it seems to be almost impossible to checkmate with two knights and a rook, but actually, while the king is not defending with any pieces, it is vulnerable. And in the second game, Magnus sacrificed the pawn on d5 by playing knight d5. He sacrificed the pawn, but didn't allow his opponent to castle, which means that his opponent will be under a permanent pressure, and he would have to look for the moves that save his position and are able to stop or prevent the threat that Magnus Carlsen creates at the very next move. And at a certain moment of the game, being under the pressure for a series of moves, his opponent makes a mistake which is decisive for the game. So you see, all these moves are not bad, but queen g6 was a mistake. If the queen was there on b6 and, for example, such move like bishop f6 was played, then white would be just slightly better and white would continue pressuring his opponent. But with queen g6, white wins immediately. So starting from knight d5 move, here 10 moves passed, 10 moves were played, 9 moves were played properly by black, and move number 10 was played, was a mistake. And this is often happens. So it doesn't really matter which level it is. It only matters when your opponent makes a mistake. If these are two club players playing and you are pressuring your opponent, he's likely to make a mistake on the third move, on the fourth move, on the fifth move. When it's two grandmasters playing, the mistake is likely to happen somewhere from move 8 to move 15. So here it happened at the 10th move, and that's why Magnus won the game. So this is how he is able to outplay his opponents. Okay, perfect. So we can finish for today. If you have any questions, you can ask. If not, then that's all for today, and see you next weekend. There will be a masterclass of Nikolai Yordanov regarding strategic play. He's going to teach you how to improve an ability to play strategically. Also, I'm going to conduct a Zoom meeting for the students of Magnus Carlsen's course. If you have no questions, then let's finish. Okay, perfect, and see you next week. And I have now to work on my opening preparation against Grandmaster Federico Peretz Sponsa. So I'm likely to play against him in a